Alright, in the last two videos, we learned to make a box of 1, size of 1 by using line, offset, fillet. We learned then to set the grid to generally the same type of size, 1 to match your box. And we learned most especially to set the grid size and then using F7 and F9 together. F7, F9, F7, F9, F7, F9, F7, F9 to turn the grid on and off, and realize that that's pretty important. Over time, I'm going to hit F7, F9 here. I'm hitting escape, selecting, and hitting the delete key, or taping erase, spacebar. Learning to turn the flee off if you can. And now thinking about how to make a repeating shape that's going to fit into this grid. Depending how your blocks are going to lay out, you might want to make your blocks, I don't know, 4 times the grid, 5 times the grid. It really depends on the kind of work you're doing. But for now, what I'm going to do is we're going to review a general basic skill and make this thing 4 times larger, scaling it about the top left corner by sweeping across so I have a grip select on that, left clicking, and now hitting the space bar till it gets to a point where it says scale, and I can just type 4 and this thing will be 4 times as large. Let's double check now. Did that work? Hit an escape, F7, F9. There you have it. And for grins, you will see finally that as we get into layering, which we may or may not be at right now, this box, it's a nice thing to keep this box around even in your blocks, but have it on a layer that you're going to be able to not show. So we're going to make a layer right now, and we're going to do it with a key in again until we start teaching the commands with the layer. Clicking here, right? There's all kinds of commands, but you will see quite often me probably earlier than I should, doing a key in, just to show you that all of these commands not only have a icon, but also a command, but also a shortcut or a non-verbose command. So I'm going to type -LA, that's the layer command. I'm going to type N for new, and I'm going to make the new layer list as block-hide. I'm going to type S for set, BLOCK-HIDE. And now my current layer, if you notice over here, is on block hide. This set of lines here was actually on a layer called object, and I can now change their properties by sweeping across, right clicking in the black space, going down to properties, and then going ahead and changing their layer to block hide. You're going to see there's lots and different ways to go ahead and do that, but we now have this block hide layer, which in the end when we use it will just be hidden, and we'll have it turned off so you don't see it. Alright, making blocks. The rules are, for the most part, you make the things that are going to be on the block on the layer 0. That is the only time you draft on the layer 0. It is the universal chameleon of layers, and you'll see as we go, a lot of the blocks that are supplied to you aren't necessarily drafted in the correct and most standard way, which is keep things on layer 0 on the block. However, if you're going to start doing things like having both a 2D schematic set of lines and a 3D set of schematic lines, like some of you might see in multisim, you're going to need to then have a different set of layers on that block, which will let you vary them as you're trying to get a different view or look of what you've drafted. I would recommend that if you are making layers for blocks, that you do include a prefix to the layer name. So BLOCK dash will be what I use here. that said, what you can now do, if you think about, you have a general pattern on this grid, F7, F9, F7, F9, and so you can either turn the grid on and off when you're drafting to do what you want to do and grab those particular points, or it will be quite nice, you will see, that if there are any particular snap point, any point that you're going to want to grab to in this block, it would be very nice and useful if you actually added an AutoCAD point there. I'm going to put them all on the same layer in this case, but very often you might want to have 8 or 10 different layers, and I know this sounds complicated. It is a good best practice, and you'll see later as things get odd with blocks. It's a good idea to have sets of layers on the blocks that you can turn on and off so you can really control to what you snap to. And this is usually done by macros when you're actually drafting. So that said, I'm going to go through and make one more layer, call it minus block dash points. See if I can do that with this command. You see that flip up here? That's the properties filter. These commands are looking, we're going to go right here. That's the new layer. And you see Alt N would be a nice thing to use. I would just use layer myself. Layer, and right there I can change that layer to block dash points. I'm clicking there. And now I'm going to double click to make that my current layer. I'm sorry, double click to make block points my current layer. Which means now when I want to put in, I'll put points at the 4 quadrants. I'm on block points, not on layer 0. I will draft on layer 0 for all the things I want to be seen in my block. So the command would be draw points, draw point, or you can just type in point. I'm holding turning my grid on now, if you would. I could do it that way, and I'm going to grab that, so I put a point there. I can turn my grid off and try it again. Point. And instead I can use my snaps, shift right click the midpoint there, shift right click the midpoint, I'm sorry, point. So draw, point, shift right click the midpoint there, shift right click, escape. And I could do it again, shift right click the midpoint there. Now I have added 4 points and you can barely see them, but they are there. You'll see there's a way to make those points look better so you can see them. It's called PD mode and it's in the display options, but for now we could, instead of just trying to see the points another way, we could just hide or freeze the layer which was our outside. So we could try to freeze layer block hide. Hitting escape here. Minus layer freeze, and the layer is block dash hide. And if you notice, just barely, you've got 4 points are on the screen. I'm going to point out that as we're stumbling a little bit in AutoCAD 10, some of these kind of interfaces on this small screen are throwing me as I go, and I will review some of these kind of layer commands in class as we go. So what we've learned now is that if we're going to make blocks, we're going to probably make a few layers that are going to be special within those blocks. We're going to at least have our box around the outside, calling on a block hide layer, and some key points on block points layer, and then we're going to draft our thing now on layer 0. I'm just going to fuddle in really quickly here a bad block, and that would be to click from here, use my shift right click from the node. It is the node that a point has that's so special, and then kind of click around again to the node. Nope, not to the none. Shift right click to the node, and I might want to also draft from the node here to the node, And that means if we go back now and turn on our block height and everything else, this all fits into the grid, F7 of 9. And when we put this together in pieces, everything will be hunky-dory.